You know the story of Mansa Musa, the man so rich that when he walked through Egypt, he handed out gold like it was nothing. The man whose wealth economists still can't calculate today. But nobody talks about what happened after he died. Because the empire he left behind, it fell apart in less than 80 years. And some historians believe Mansa Musa himself may have accidentally started that collapse. This is the story they don't tell you. To understand how far Mali fell, you need to understand how high it once stood. At its peak, the Mali Empire controlled nearly half of the world's entire gold supply. Half! Timbuktu wasn't just a city, it was one of the most important centers of learning on the planet. Scholars came from across the Islamic world to study there. The university at Sankore had students when Oxford was barely a decade old. This wasn't a tribe, this was a civilization. Mansa Musa died around 1337, and almost immediately the cracks appeared. His son Magan took the throne. Within 4 years, the Mosi people raided Timbuktu. The city burned. The sense of invincibility was gone. Then came the Tuareg, nomadic warriors from the north who had long respected Mali's strength, but now sensed weakness. They began dismantling the trade routes that kept Mali's economy alive. No trade routes meant no tax revenue. No tax revenue meant no army. No army meant no control. And then there was Songhai, a vassal state that had once bowed to Mali's power. Under Sunni Ali, Songhai didn't ask for independence, it took it, city by city, territory by territory. By 1430, Mali had lost Timbuktu. By 1500, the empire that had once terrified kings was a shadow state controlling barely a fraction of its original land. But here's what historians are still debating to this day. Did Mansa Musa, the greatest king Mali ever had, accidentally trigger his own empire's downfall? Because what he did on his pilgrimage to Mecca wasn't just generous. Economically, it was catastrophic. When Musa passed through Cairo in 1324, he brought roughly 60,000 people and tens of thousands of kilograms of gold. He gave it away freely to the poor, to mosques, to merchants, to strangers on the street. He flooded the Egyptian market with gold so completely that the value of gold across North Africa and the Mediterranean collapsed. Prices across the region skyrocketed, economies destabilized. Some historians estimate it took Egypt and parts of the Arab world over a decade to recover. Now here's the question. Mali's entire power was built on gold. Its trade, its taxation, its diplomatic leverage, its identity. If Musa's generosity devalued gold across the known world, did he weaken the very foundation his empire stood on? Did the world's richest man make gold worth less? Some historians say yes. Others argue the internal succession crisis was far more damaging than any market effect. The truth is probably both, but the fact that we're still arguing about it tells you everything about how complex this story is. Mali, the empire, fell, but not everything it built disappeared. The manuscripts of Timbuktu survived. Hundreds of thousands of texts on astronomy, medicine, law, and philosophy, many of which scholars are still translating today. The trade networks Mali established shaped West African commerce for centuries. The idea that an African empire could be a global center of knowledge, that didn't disappear either. It just got buried by time, by neglect, by a world that preferred a different story about Africa. Mali fell, but it left behind proof that while Europe was fighting plague and feudal wars, Africans were running universities, governing vast empires, and shaping the global economy. So why is the first thing most people learn about African history slavery? That's not an accident. That's a choice about whose stories get told. I'm going to keep telling these stories. If this one meant something to you, subscribe because we're just getting started. And tell me in the comments, do you think Mansa Musa's generosity hurt his empire, or was the collapse inevitable?